So up to now, we've been using the control statements, the variables, without delving into its data types. So the computer recognizes things in zeros and ones. That's all it does. It only recognizes a on or off state. The details of this hardware design is for another topic, but that's the basics of it. Which means how you interpret a series of ones and zeros is how the computer will use that information. There are 5 ways to interpret it, and we call these things data types. So there's 5 data types, 5 ways, 5 data types. The first way, or the first data type, is called integers. You'll see at the very top here, integers. These are your numbers, so your basic zeros, 1, 2, 3, 4s, your negatives, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. They do not have any fractions, and they do not have any decimal points. These are solid whole numbers, countable numbers as they're called. The next is called the floating point numbers. These are the ones with decimal points. We do not have anything for fractions, because fractions is made up of 2 integers, and there's a different way to control that. But floating point variable is a decimal point, and it stores its information in the computer a little bit differently. A Boolean is a true or false. Basically, anything that is a yes or a no that can be broken down to a yes or no statement. That's a Boolean. So when we're doing our if statements, our if controls, those statements in between the brackets are basically being simplified down to a true or false statement. The fourth one is called character. This is a single alphabet, so a single letter. Generally, in most languages, we use a single quote, as you can see here with the A, single quote here, to denote that this is a character. And a string is your last data type. It uses double quotes, and it is a list of characters and can create a word. Now, the word doesn't have to be a real word, so long as it is a list of characters combined together. Now, as a side note, you'll notice that there's a hashtag or a pound sign here. This is a way to comment the code. What commenting does is it gives hints, or gives the reader, which is us, a way to see what this code is doing. The computer doesn't care about this. The computer will see that pound sign and go, oh, okay, so I don't need to worry about this line, ignore it. And literally, the computer will ignore those lines, or anything after the pound sign. It will do everything up to this 9 and ignore anything after this pound sign. That's called commenting. Very useful for testing code. So let's visualize it and see how the computer stores these information. So the integer are stored just like an integer. The float, you can tell the difference between a float and integer is the way it is stored. A float will always have a decimal point, regardless of whether or not it is a whole number or not. If it's a whole number, it will just have a decimal point of 0 afterwards. It will always have that decimal point. Boolean will be stored as true or false. The capital T is important. Capital T is used in Python as a way to denote it is the true character. Character is stored with a single line or single letter with double quotes, and string is a series of characters with double quotes. You'll notice how in the memory, Python actually do not differentiate between string and character. This is a short side of Python. Most other languages do, Python does not. So it is up to you as the programmer to keep track of whether it's a character or a string. It does bring some advantages, but also brings with it some disadvantages. Let's go to to code. These are your 5 basic types. Everything else in coding can be made from these 5 basic types. This is a quick introduction to all 5. I'll be going through what you can do with every single one of these things in the next 5 videos.